There's a man who died today. His name was James Harrison. You probably haven't heard that name before, but 2.5 million people are alive today because of him. So what was so special about Mr. Harrison? He had a rare blood type that was particularly useful in saving babies who were struggling. And I suppose that when he found this out, he made the decision to spend a considerable amount of his time in life, throughout his life, giving blood. He did it as often as he could through his whole life. And because of that, he made this tremendous impact on the world. When we think of a positive impact, an outsized positive impact on the world, we tend to think of these big, shiny things. And I suppose, in a way, saving more than 2.5 million babies is certainly an outsized impact. But I want to share with you today a message that I hope motivates you to introspect about the impact that you could have on others in ways that might not be completely visible to you just yet. I want to share a story from a long time ago. I went to visit a man who had a very limited income. And at some point in the conversation, I was a student in an undergraduate program at the time. And at some point in the conversation, I was lamenting the fact that I didn't have more money because I had such a desire to help people who were in need. And without missing a beat, he turned to me and he said, "Well, you've got $1. Everyone has $1. And his words ripped through me like a cannonball. And I've never forgotten that experience. And it changed my life. Now, money makes it very easy in some ways to help other people. There are always people who need money. There are always causes that you could advance with the money that you have, even if you have very little money, and especially if you have a lot of money. This channel, for instance, the books I write full-time, they're all given away for free and fully supported and made possible by the few people that donate to the Upward Thought Foundation. And I appreciate it, and thank you if you're one of those people. But money isn't the only way that we can help others. In fact, in at least some ways, it's not the most important way. Now, what I'm getting at, each of us has a very specific life. In fact, it's so specific that it's absolutely individual. If we were to sit down, you and I, and walk through the particulars of your life, we wouldn't have to gather much information before we will have chained together a set of circumstances that's as unique as your fingerprint. Now, the question is, are you using those unique features, the set of them, to find and do what you can do better than anyone else can? Now, when we start talking like this, the humble people get really uncomfortable because they don't think of themselves as special in any way. But here's the thing. God knows all things, and He placed each of us in the circumstances that we find ourselves in. We are called to be soldiers in His army, and He has placed us in specific circumstances where there are specific things that He needs us to do. These are opportunities for us to join in His purpose in ways that are custom fitted to the exact attributes that we have as individuals. Now, going back to the money example, right? Everyone has $1. Well, maybe you have a lot more than $1, and that is part of what makes you different. Maybe you don't. But your circumstances still give you opportunity to do what no one else could do, because no one else is standing where you stand. Now, as we expand this out to non-monetary things, think about it. If you have children and you're the father of those children, you're the only person on this planet who's their dad. If you're the mother of those children, you're the only person on this planet who's their mother. Let's suppose that you're the friend of someone. I hope that's true for at least one person. Who else do they have in their network of friends who's exactly like you? And if you compared yourself to all the other friends, I guarantee you that there's some difference there that could be turned to a benefit that wouldn't otherwise exist. God has placed us on this earth to make it as good as we can. Each of us has special capabilities to do that in a way that's particular to us. What it's kind of like is that we're each a vessel that holds a different volume, a vessel that takes a slightly different shape, a vessel that's in a different place than all other vessels. And if we turn our hearts and our minds to Him with our whole soul, He'll fill us with His Spirit. And we'll find ways to make things better than they would be if we weren't here. There's a wonderful movie. It's so wonderful it has the word in its title. It's called It's a Wonderful Life. And in that movie, part of it is that the main character gets to see what all the people in his life, how their lives would be different if he had never been born. He's at a point in his life where he feels like a total failure. He feels like he hasn't made a difference. And so an angel comes along and shows him what it would be like if he had never been born. What would it be like if you'd never been born? Would the world notice? I'm not sure anyone is out there for whom the answer would be that the world wouldn't notice. But I am sure that anyone watching this can do a little bit more to stir the pot just a little more. You can live your life in such a way that everywhere you go and everyone you interact with is at least a little better than they would have been. It's totally possible to do this. And it should be something that excites you, not something that overwhelms you. Because here's the thing. When we think of making things better, we tend to think of these big flashy things like saving 2.5 million babies over the course of a lifetime. But there's two parts of this that we need to think of a little more accurately. First off, even in the flashy things, they almost never come about in flashy ways. That man sat in a chair with a needle in his arm on a routine basis for his entire adult life. That's how the difference came about. There might be some extremely non-glamorous, maybe incredibly private, maybe totally internal way that God wants to use you to make things better than they could be. And no one's going to see it. And that's okay. When we put into place these hidden constraints, we filter out the good that God could do with us if we just trusted Him, if we just turned our lives over to Him, if we really believed that He knows better than us, if we really believed that He loves us so much that He's gone through extraordinary ends to place you exactly where you need to be, where you, individually, exactly how you are, need to be for the greatest good. Are you ready to let him use you in the way he sees fit? Because he does everything for the greatest benefit. It's definitely what's best for you, and it's what's best for everyone around you. The other part of this that we need to call attention to is a very important point. If you're climbing a ladder, unless you're some NBA star, you can't jump up a whole bunch of rungs. You have to start on the very first rung. So many people daydream about these glorious, grand visions of what they want to do and who they want to be. But they don't want to buckle down and focus on the closest rungs. Who you are as a person is the greatest limiting factor to what God can do with you and what he can do through you for other people. You have to look into yourself and see the parts that aren't that great and fix them. God gives you the power to do this. He will give you the vision to do it if you ask him to open your eyes. He will give you the courage to do it. He will give you all the reasons you need to see it as worthwhile. I promise. And as you do this, the scales will fall from your eyes, and you'll see more fully what the next rungs are. And they're going to be in the relationships you have with the people who are closest to you. If you're married, it absolutely includes your spouse. If you have kids, it absolutely includes your kids. If you have parents, it probably includes your parents. If you don't have parents, something very strange is afoot. Because you came from somewhere, right? Okay. Beyond extended family, it's also going to include your friends. It's also going to include the people you work with. And it goes out in cascading echoes from you to your family, to your friends, to your community, and so on. And as you look at those aspects of your life, you can ask God, how can I make this better? And he will show you. He will show you. And these aren't burdens to be carried, they're opportunities. Even in the worst possible circumstances, where you just have so much on your plate that you feel like one more thing will topple the whole thing, like a game of Jenga. I guess it's inverse Jenga, because you're not taking things off, you're just putting them on. It's halfway Jenga, second half Jenga. Even in that case, and even if the people that you try to do this with absolutely hate your guts for doing it, even in that case, you are going to build a portfolio of situations that are better because of you. Or more correctly, because of what you allowed God to do through you and being a vessel for his Spirit, the Spirit of improvement, the Spirit of truth, the Spirit of goodness, the Spirit of love. And would it be love if it were easy? It could still be love, it just wouldn't be worth as much. What a tremendous opportunity we have to love people in spite of opposition. Well, I hope these things give you something to think about and something to work on. It's very important that we make the greatest use of every day that we have to make the world as good as we can.